Hey guys, welcome back to another Lore Olympus discussion. I am Dazzling Kate, and welcome to my channel for those who are new here. Oh my goodness, I know a few people wanted me to talk about Apollo, so I've been saving time and effort to do him. I was gonna do it a few weeks ago, but then I got sick, and now I'm back with a probably not a sick tone. If I do sound sickish, that's because I'm still recovering. Or at least I think I've managed to recover. I just kind of still have that, crap in my throat that just won't leave me alone. You know, when you're just like still freaking, recovering and you can still feel that weird lump of, like snot in your throat and you're like, what the fuck? Anyways, guys. Sorry about that. Anyways, let us talk about Apollo. Should Apollo really be the villain? Now, this is probably going to get some mixed feelings about it because of how the plot goes in Lore Olympus and how it's handled, blah, 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 blah. Please don't take this as me defending what Apollo did in the series. I'm just trying to understand why choose Apollo out of all the gods and goddesses and all these other characters in mythology that could have been used, but instead it's Apollo because he's Zeus's mirror image. I don't know what to really say about it. It's hard to say. But anyways, grab your drinks, grab your snacks. I'm not sure if it will be a long one, but whatever. Anyways, let us sit down. Now, compared to like all the other figures in mythology and the characters in Lore Olympus, we're just kind of supposed to make Apollo the bad guy because if we take away what happened with Persephone and Daphne, if we take those away, what's there really to make us say he's the bad guy? He's the villain. He's the mastermind behind all this inner evil and shit. It doesn't make any sense. If you take that away from Apollo, he's just a really pushy douchebag. And, some people like douchebags. And, I'm not saying there are people who do enjoy his character in this series. I'm merely trying to understand why use him as the villain. When you have Kronos, who doesn't really get that much exploration, and honestly, we don't really hear much of his own thoughts and why he's doing what he's doing. It's a mixed bag of cats here. There's a lot of different cats who hate each other in the bag, and you're just kind of left wondering if you should open up that bag. If you get my understanding. If you get what I mean. Do you understand? Probably not. That was just something I pulled from my ass right now when I think it's a good quote, actually. Maybe I might use that more often. Don't open up the bag of angry cats. Oh man, I'm pathetic when it comes to making up these new things. But okay. Anyways, if you take away what happened to Persephone and Daphne, there's really not much to keep Apollo as the villain. What makes him more powerful than Kronos? And even then, Persephone has the ability to kick Apollo's ass. And I get it. She's she's still got trauma and stuff. But it's so weird to me. If she can take down Kronos, Apollo should be a fucking walk in the park, considering A, he doesn't have that much energy as Kronos did with being awakened and shit. 2, all this set up for what reason? There's a lot of plot holes with this. There's a lot of plot holes. We're supposed to hate this guy. And yes, every time he opens his mouth, I wish I could toss it. Toss him out a fucking window. But it's there's a lack of development of why he does what he does. But then again, we have Leto and her manipulation, so maybe it's all because of her neglect in some way, form, or another. Or, the praise of how he's amazingly good at what he's doing that he gets so full of himself that he just thinks everyone loves him. That could be it. That could definitely be it. I do see Apollo as being missed potential for other stories, considering we're supposed to hate him, but if you really look at it, he is one of I do want to say, if they didn't focus on him being a douchebag, there's a lot of potential storytelling for his love life, and I think that's the most recognizable thing about his character and mythology, is that a lot of his lovers ended up dead. So those are much more interesting than what happened to Persephone and Daphne. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm basically saying, even when Rachel writes these characters and their trauma, she doesn't really deliver on how she does it. She doesn't really deliver on how it affects others. It's so weird, because I could go into a long rant about how Daphne is, unfair to Thanatos, and how Persephone, even despite, having what happened to her, is still wanting to do that kind of thing. And I get it, people process trauma in their own ways. They have their own choices, emotions, and that kind of thing. But it's so confusing when you're supposed to see these characters as victims, but you don't really make them survivors. They're just still kind of victims in a way. If that makes sense to you guys, it's kind of like, oh, boo-hoo me, I've, this happened to me. Then you don't really deliver on how it affects them in that way. And yes, Rachel has tried to, but she hasn't really, it keeps flip-flopping. The moment she gets into it, it immediately changes to something else. I swear, if you start feeling one of those moments coming up, it's gonna come up, and then you're just like, what the hell? I thought we were focusing on with Persephone's trauma. Now we're suddenly, I don't know, thrown into I don't know, Hades' cooking show or some shit. I have no clue. It's that forgetful. It's those moments that just, you're supposed to feel something, and then you're just led to another thing, and it's what the fuck was I thinking about again? What? I don't get it. Anyways. Alright, as I really think about it, when it comes to a lot of these moments centered around Daphne and Persephone getting over, trying to move on from their trauma, it always comes back. And in the later chapters, and the more, I would say the recent chapters, when Apollo is seen through, one of those candidate sign things, I don't know what they're fucking called, but it's they talk about, oh wow, even despite, fighting Kronos, one of the, powerful gods, titans, and it took the others years to beat him. And then she's just complaining about, she's complaining oh wow, I got a chicken sandwich instead of a tuna sandwich. It's one of those things, the way that Persephone says it, it's no matter what, I still can't look at Apollo, because even though I can defeat Kronos, it's so weird to me. It's so weird. It's basically I got a chicken sandwich instead of a tuna sandwich. Is that weird? I think it's weird. It's one of those moments. It just, I don't get it. I really don't. How am I supposed to feel anything when, well, all this stuff is so messy reading? There's a lot of loose ends. There's a lot of things we could do with Apollo that isn't making him the villain. Actually having him be a useful god. The thing about him, it's just, you could have a lot of focus on his love life. He could have been one of the, I think that's probably why Rachel didn't make him into a likable main character, hero type character, is because Apollo has a long list of dead lovers, a long list of mixed feelings with lovers, and, he's, bisexual, so he's got both male and female lovers, and I think this is it's odd to me because it's like she doesn't have any problems setting Artemis and Hestia up. Like, wait, not Artemis, Athena, Athena and Hestia up. Even though it's like so freaking weird, like what the fuck? But like we can't have hit like Apollo dating anyone like than being other than being a douchebag straight guy character. It's like it's always like if you guys have noticed this trend, it's definitely been seen a lot. Like you have the straight guy douchebag type character where he's basically sexist as hell for no apparent reason, despite being raised by like a likable mother figure, and it's so weird to me because Leto is actually a very interesting character in mythology. I don't know too much about her, but people have said that Leto has been misrepresented in Lore Olympus, and she's more of a kinder figure to people. And it's like, how the hell does this like add up? How does this like add up? How do like the characters like this end up being the bad guys, even though they don't really have any reason to be the bad guys? And I get this. It's Rachel's interpretation. It's her piece of artwork. It's what she can do whatever the hell she wants with. But it leaves me more confused than with answers. But Apollo, why should he really be the villain? There's a lot of storytelling potential in him, and I feel like Rachel was probably like, well, he would be too iconic for people, and I'm like having this bisexual male character. I see a lot more bisexual female characters than I do bisexual male, and if Rachel doesn't have any problems with that, it's just like she just probably just wants him to be like one of those just like cis white guy characters. I don't know. Like it feels like that because there has been a trend of that where basically it's not the girl's fault. It's not this the person who made the mistake's fault. It's the white guy's fault. It's the douchebag's fault. And it shows. Could Apollo have been saved if Rachel just decided to focus a lot more on fixing her writing? Now, this is a tricky question. Like, I do think that he could be an interesting character if he wasn't like how he is. Like, it's a lot of people just seem to want to hate Apollo, and then it goes straight into the mythology because that's what they think the mythology is, even though Apollo and Persephone really didn't have any connections like with each other to one another in most of the stories told. So it's a little confusing. It's a little like strange and such. Again, I do think that like Apollo should have been like a different character and just have Kronos be the main villain of the entire series because it really feels like let's look at it this way. Kronos has done a lot of stupid shit, a lot of really bad shit. Like he's done all of this. Like he's caused a lot of problems. And then compared to what Apollo did, it feels like Apollo's lacking in that department. Like actually doing something evil that isn't, assaulting anyone. It's like he hasn't really done anything bad necessarily. Cause like it's so weird. Like some people might use the court scene as an excuse of him being bad or him basically talking about, keeping like Persephone's mouth shut. That is bad, but it's just like if you really look at it from a different like perspective, there's not really any areas of where Apollo fails to really be like shown as a villain. There's nothing really like usually you see with villains, they're very cold, they're very, very cruel. Like you don't really get that from Apollo. It's just If anything, he's just like one of those crazies with like multiple personalities. Like, that's the best way I can really describe his behavior. Like, he always is constantly changing. He switches faces all the time. And yes, that is another tactic that you see in people with, like, abusive behavior, and it is shown a lot in media. So I will give Rachel that she tried to make him double faced. Well, two faced is the preferred term, I guess. And it shows, but really seeing that, it's just like you don't really see them doing anything else with him being the villain in the story. It's just like, oh wow, he's just like two-faced and an assaulter. Like, compared to other characters who've done far more worse. Like, he's never really went on to like bragging about like all these like crimes that he's done. Like, really, it's mixed up. It's really mixed up. Because in the series specifically, we don't really see him doing anything necessarily bad unless you count him murdering like that one family with Artemis, and even then the other gods didn't see that as a problem. It's just like it's like, what can you really do? What can you really do? It's just, I don't get it either, guys. I'm just really confused about how Rachel has been trying to, make Apollo the villain. And it's like, it's not really working in this way where you're supposed to hate him. It's like, oh, here's Apollo. Okay. Anything else? No, he's the bad guy. Because he did this to Persephone, and he did this to Daphne. Okay. Then he murdered a group of people. It's like reading a grocery list. Rachel so far has only been giving us a grocery list of, like, reading a grocery list of all these things Apollo did. And honestly, it's just boring as hell. Like, make me want to hate him even more. Like, make him steal shit from little kids. I don't know. Something to make him a villain. I don't really know how you can screw up making a villainous character when you have all these other things to show. Like, all these characters. Like, you have a lot of hard times, like, trying to, like, put this into a modern setting. Now, if this was, like, more of a older time setting, even then, I don't really see anything there. Is it just me? Is it just me that I'm not seeing any villain potential in Apollo? Like, if, again, like I said before, if you take away the whole assault, and then if you take away basically everything he's done between him and Persephone and Daphne, it's just like, there's nothing really there to make him the villain. Like, you're supposed to make them stand on their own to be the villain. Like, even without the main character, like, let me pull an example, like Aladdin. Let's go to Aladdin for a minute. If, like, Jafar was focused on his own mission, and, even when Aladdin wasn't there, even when Aladdin wasn't brought into the picture, he was still an asshole. He was a villain. He was someone, you knew was going to be bad. Apollo, it's just like, nah, nothing really there. Like, come on. Give me a reason to hate Apollo. Like, give me a story involving him doing the worst thing ever, aside from, what? There isn't any? So, yeah, another reason why I'm going to go into this, I was, like, talking to one of my subscribers, people in the comments from, like, some of my other videos about this, and Apollo, I've heard a few of them say that Apollo would have been a better character to have Persephone started off in a relationship with than to have him do what he did to her. That way, it actually gives both of them room to grow, and it's just like, nothing really bad happens between them. It's just that he couldn't satisfy her. She, in a way, like, love wise, and he broke up with her. Like, I read one of those comments and I was just like, that would have been a lot better than trying to make him into a villain, because it just feels it feels like two completely different stories if you really think about it. If you look at it, there's not enough glue to really connect the two, and even then it's just like, nothing really there to keep me there. Really, there's just nothing. And it sucks. Because I do love me a good villain. It's just hard to really see Apollo being a villain. If you take away what happened, you're just left with him basically whining, being a douchebag. And even then, there are plenty of douchebag, whiny characters that have turned out to be, good guys. So, really, it's just kind of weird that that's the only thing holding this character together. There's nothing really there to keep us there. And it sucks. It really sucks. Because there is missed potential in Apollo, like I said with Artemis. There's a lot of missed potential. And it's unfortunate that Rachel just decides, he's going to be the bad guy, and still continues to have a problem trying to make him the bad guy. Anyways, guys, that is all about my thoughts on Apollo. I think I got everything out of my system. Again, I'm not trying to excuse his behavior in the series. I'm just merely saying, even with what played out, there's nothing really making him the criminal. If all of this was like taken out, he would just be a dislikable dumbass, like douchebag, that kind of thing. And it shows. But anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. And what are your thoughts on Apollo's character in Lore Olympus? Tell me down in the comment section down below. And if you are new here, please hit that subscribe button. It means the world to me when you subscribe. It gives me more topics to talk about and more people to annoy with my long rambles about characters and webtoons and comics and everything pop culture related. So please subscribe to my channel. And stay safe, stay cool, and stay hydrated. This is Dazzling Kate, signing the hell out of here.